3 quick names before we wrap this up. I'm curious to get your insight. You mentioned Aaron Judge. How important was it for the Yankees to re-sign him?
I don't know if we can specify how vital that was. Monumental, gigantic.
So, like, for that 24 hours that it looked like he was going to San Francisco, was that a crushing thing for the Yankees?
I'm glad you asked that. I was on set in San Diego covering the winter meetings with Meredith Marakovits when John Heyman...
future Sports with Friends guest, Meredith Marakovits.
Oh, awesome. Amazing. She'll be great. When John Heyman had that tweet, and I have great respect for John, by the way, terrific reporter, we had Yankees executives coming to our set to tape some interviews because of the time difference, obviously 3 hours behind. We were doing a few things pre-taped. And I have to tell you, Seth, that the look on their face was of, you just lost this guy. And you started to think about, where are they going from here? So I always think about that when I think about how vital was it for them to get him back, because there was a period of time where they did think they had lost him. Meredith and I actually went to dinner that night and ran into Aaron Boone. And Boone was, if I could use a word, unnerved. Because they were still saying, what's going on here? John retracted the tweet, but that thought was still out there. So, yeah, you got to bring back your franchise player. He's got a long way to go to make this happen, but you could argue that if Judge stays healthy, maybe Judge ends up in the Hall of Fame. So that you had to have this guy back.
The second name is a name you referenced, Anthony Volpe. What I was so impressed with is, I love the story. I love that he's a kid from New Jersey. I love that my kids are hockey obsessed, right? So Jack Hughes is their favorite player, but one of their friends has, as much as my kids love Jack Hughes, one of my daughter's good friends has a poster of Anthony Volpe. She's 11. Anthony Volpe. I said, wow, like, kids really dig this kid. Please tell me he's at least A, the genuine article, and B, can have a nice career. I'm not asking him to be Derek Jeter. I'm not asking him to be a superstar. He's not even going to be Jack Hughes. But what can he be so that these kids can rally around this Jersey kid?
The first part of your question is, without a doubt, he is a sincere, polite, kind young man. I interviewed him in spring training, Seth, and I talked about his approach at the plate. And I said, I've talked to some Yankee people who say that you have an advanced approach at the plate for a young player. And before he answered the question, I said, where did that come from? Before he answered the question, he said, oh, thanks. I think it's the first time that a guy slipped a thank you in there because I put some complimentary words in the question.
Love it.
I think, Seth, you're looking at a future all-star. And I do think that the Jeter comparisons are both unfair, but also impossible to avoid.
Yep.
But let's just look at the body of work so far. He's played a quarter of a season. He's got 13 stolen bases. He's got 6 home runs. Would you take 24 home runs and 52 stolen bases out of your rookie shortstop? The average is 218. I think that's going to get better. But I would always look at the on-base percentage. I bet you he ends up the season with a 350, 360 on-base percentage, 50 stolen bases, and he creates havoc on the bases, Seth. Judge has talked about this. He gets under a pitcher and a catcher's skin, and that could help the guys who hit after him.
I like it. One more. Aaron Boone, and my question for him is does he remind you of the guy you covered as a player? And does he remind you of his dad as a manager? Because I covered his dad as a manager, and I'm curious, does he share a lot of those qualities? Because when I covered him as a player, I didn't sense that. He seemed very different, and I was wondering if they were related. But who's he more like? Is he more like Bob Boone, or is he more like Aaron Boone, the player?
That's a great question, Seth. And so I'm going to answer the first part of it first, because it's an easier answer. When I covered Aaron Boone, it was for half a season. I mean, he wasn't there very long, but I saw
hit a big home run, though.
Somewhat carefree, but also focused player. in that moment, was I thinking of Aaron Boone as a future manager the way I had thought of someone like Girardi or someone like David Cohn, and the way I had thought Paul O'Neill will never be a manager? No, I wasn't thinking of Aaron Boone that way. Now, in terms of comparing him to his dad, my interaction with his father was being a visiting writer who would go ask his dad a few questions every once in a while. So I can't say that I honestly know Bob Boone really well. But what I know of Aaron, I think Aaron is his own man. I think Aaron is his own person in the dugout. We all know that managing baseball games in 2023, it's way different for Aaron Boone than it was for Bob Boone. Buck Showalter was in the studio for us a couple of years with Yes before he got the Mets manager's job. And we talked about how the job has changed and how there's more input and you have to navigate that as a manager. And I thought Buck had a great answer just along the lines of, you should want that information. You should want all of that information and then soak it in, absorb it, and go into the dugout that night with that information and with everything else your eyes are telling you and try and manage the best game possible.